When we started to make the second record, nobody was really saying, "Oh, we're the fucking, we're the biggest in the world, and this is going to be another Appetite for Destruction, or or anything like that." So it was very much a sort of get in there and try and do what we did before, but better. And it worked better. There was more production in it. I got better over the year.
About 10 or 11 months later.
It was just months later?
We went into Ridge Farm Studios in March 1980.
Okay.
To record the first album, Blizzard of Oz. Second album was around February 1981, so it was about 11 months later.
Okay.
And no, the two albums weren't done together. That's another inaccurate rumor that's floated about for quite a while, that we went in and recorded two albums. We didn't.
Yeah, it was almost a year, probably about 10 months, I think, something like that. Yeah, it was the next year. It was 81 when we did Diary.
Diary, yeah.
It was the Diary was better. We had at that point we had a Lexicon 224, which is a better reverberation unit. I had a little more time on the AMS, so I had a longer digital delay. We had a couple of extra boxes in there, so we had more toys to play with a little bit. Randy had progressed and evolved with his chip pan pedal, so that he had more fucking boxes plugged in down there that made more noise, and so there was a few things like that, and also. As you say, there was a bit of camaraderie, and we all knew what to do, and we all got in there, just set it up, and we started working. And
everything we did, we liked, because we'd start one riff or something and go, nah, it hasn't got that fizz buzz. We didn't roll. If we had a certain idea, and the riff or Randy would say something, or I would come up with something, we'd start playing. I'd play on the piano, and then Bob would say to them, yeah, and I go, no, it's not good, is it? And we'd stop then and go on to something else. Or go out the pub, have a couple of beers, or play a bit of tennis. And we come back, and I say, I got another idea. And I'd play a bit of piano, Randy would kick in, and off we go with another track. It was that way, it was that magical.
Was it the same contribution that Ozzy had on the first album that on the second album?
He did get quite drunk and stoned and fallen over, and a lot of the time when we were writing Diary of a Madman, the stuff for that album, he wasn't even there. It was just Lee and Randy and me.
I did it with the way that Randy came up with a riff, and I listened to it with Bob, and I went, gosh, that sounds, what we can do with that? We can do a kind of a Zeppelin effect. When I said, there's something in that. It's really weird. And we worked it, going down, down, down. And then we did it and I started playing the drums and singing the vocal melody. And then Bob would come on the bass. And we built it bit by bit, totally there and then. And that, again, as I keep on saying, it's magic. It came out. It flowed out of us. And that was the wonderful thing. I did vocal melodies. Not only did I vocal melodies, I helped Randy do some solos as well, because I had them in my head, and these ideas.
Ozzy very sing-song. He has that very sing-song kind of mentality, and that's really what made those records. One of the things that made them very accessible is the fact that his melodies are very accessible. I mean, it's kind of poppy, really, in a way. That's it. These are like pop melodies. Ozzy would never have written those melodies if he hadn't have had Randy writing tune behind it.
I wrote Flying High, Over the Mountains, Sato, those songs on the Madman. I had 7 songs that I co-wrote.
I initially called that song, when I wrote the lyrics for that one, I called it Strange Voyage.
Okay.
And that was the working title, and that what it was meant to be called, just Strange Voyage. But after I'd gone, they renamed it SATO.
Sorry, but he's a liar, because we never met, we never knew each other, and he knew nothing of Blizzard, and the one thing around it is, I did it when I was there. I said, you know, I've got an idea for an intro, and I never knew him, that's why I said it. It was a lie from him, and I did it, and I take credit for it because it was my idea, and it was that quadruple triplets. Yeah, that was all it was. Me coming up with a different idea to introduce to a band. So you go, bloody hell, what's that? And then now it's being done with everybody.
So Lee had already sung a few bits and bits. So Lee was good at vocal melodies too. You know, he'd get a mic. If Ozzy wasn't there, he'd get a mic, sit on his kit, play the, drums and sing sort of vocal ideas. It was him that came up with the vocal melody for Flying High Again.
To be able to go in, I came up with an idea of Flying High Again, a mama's on the glory, and everybody on the team just took it and we flew it off like it was written in about 10 minutes. It was magic, beautiful magic. It basically was, just, it's very difficult to remember most of it. It's just the evil, it was like an evil plod.
Yeah. Yes.
And I like, the pins and needles pricked the skins of little dolls and things. I love that style of music because I'm kind of weird and in the odd sense. I think maybe, okay, well that's going to work. And then when Randy and me and Bob put all our fingers in the pie, bang, there's a wonderful thing comes out. And I love that, That's what it's all about. We were experimenting. We weren't told good or bad. We weren't told to say, you've got to get another Iron Man or, anything like Black Sabbath would do. They want none of that. And that's what was great. And that freedom became the band. That's why it was unique to hear the music that came out. Everybody used to say, wow, there's such a gap for you. You're in. And that's why we took off. Tonight, the memory, or am I right? We worked out the vocals, me and Bob, while the guitars were in, and we would go, we just worked out vocal melodies. And I'll stand up and I'll see it again.
And in between, he's having a slug of scotch, or doing something else. Mostly having a slug of scotch.
Sure.
And I remember I would punch in, and he wouldn't be singing. And I'd like solo it up real quick and crank it up, and I could hear this hissing sound. And he was actually just standing there taking a piss on the floor by the side of the mic. And he'd be like, do it again. So I'd be like, oh shit. And then one of the times I punched in, he was throwing up. But most of the time he was very good. And actually, we did have the chance to listen to those multi-tracks many years later, actually, and they are actually exemplary. They're really, really good. I mean, his singing is really good. There's no tuning on any of that stuff. That stuff is as it is,
Ozzy did have a contribution a lot of the time, but I'd say on Diary of a Madman, nothing. On the song Diary of a Madman, nothing, because Randy was learning this classical piece, or practicing a classical piece that was based on another piece of music, and all that information's in my book as well.
Yeah.
And so Randy and I started working up music, and then Lee started singing an idea for where the vocal would fall, because there were weird timings. It was weird timing. That's not your straight 4/4 or 2/4 or even 6/8. It was like weird timings and that. So when Ozzy, he'd been away for a couple of days, and he came into rehearsal one day, and we said, we've got a new idea. You see, I came up with the title of the album, Diary of a Madman, months earlier, and Ozzy loved the title, but we didn't have a song for a title song called Diary of a Madman. So when Randy had these ideas of this weird timing stuff and that, and I thought, well, because it's weird, that would probably lend itself to being the title track, Diary of a Madman. But with Diary of a Madman, when Ozzy came back and we just played him the backing track, and I've quoted this in my book too, Ozzy didn't get it. He didn't quite understand it because it was weird timings and that. His words were, and I still remember like it was yesterday, he said, "Who the fuck do you think I am, Frank Zappa?" That's what he said, because he didn't quite get it. And once we showed him where the vocal melody would fall and where it would sit in between these, weird bits of music and timing, he was all right. Then I wrote the lyrics to it.
Like I say, we're still only working on 24 tracks. So
wow,
we had,
on 24 tracks.
Well, 23 tracks. So
okay.
We ended up, and they had warned me that we were going to put strings and choir on some of these. So I had 4 tracks to work with, basically. So we went to Lansdowne, which is where Uriah Heep used to do all their recording until they started working in the Roundhouse. But Lansdowne, we went to Lansdowne to do the chorus, and we had an 8-piece choir, I think. The and all this, and the whole deal with that is it's musician union session. So what we would do is we would do a run through, and then we would do another run through, but we would record the second run through, but not tell them.
Okay.
And then we keep that, and then we record another run through, or actually do a take. But then now we would have a double track, but we wouldn't have to pay for the double track because they didn't know about it. You see, so
right. That's it.
The old sneaky double track.
The old sneaky double track, yes, and that's what you had to do in those days because it would cost you, twice as much actually to do a double track. But they would charge you. So we went and did that at Lansdowne.
The Diary of a Madman, when we did, and I came up with the idea, we got to do a load of drums. As if we're out in the hills, and the guitar playing over it, and that was a fantastic feeling when they did all those vocals. They got a choir in to do all the vocals on it. La 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 la, bum bum. It was just mind-boggling. Bob wrote the words. I was helping with the vocal melodies, and I always did, and always, even with the Heap, I did a lot of work in melodies and vocals and guitar solos. Again, were one of my specialties, which I did a few with Randy. So, the thing was, we had the camaraderie there, and even Ozzy was there in it, almost to the point of being a comrade.
I'd been into classical music, and there was lots of pieces that I loved. That piece of music that Ozzy came on stage to, Carmina Burana, that was my idea. And the same with the music in the track Diary of a Madman. We had Lou Clark, who was the string arranger for ELO, who were also on Jet Records, and he came down. He was going to do the strings and choirs and stuff for Diary of a Madman. And I gave him a tape of Carmina Burana, that piece of music by Carl Orff. And I just said, look, when you do the choirs and strings and that, just think Carmina Burana for us. And that's what it did. It's got that Carmina Burana thing about it with, with that track, Diary of a Madman. So Randy and I were on the same page there as well. That intro part is a piece called Etude, that his classical teacher, so Randy used to seek out classical teachers when he went to different places, and the one at that time in England, he'd given him that etude piece to practice as a part of his lesson, influenced the whole intro of Diary. So if you listen to that etude, and then you listen to the intro to Diary, you can hear the influence. But I wouldn't say, that's a complete nick. He's used that part. They're similar in ways, and you can hear the influence, and it's as simple as that, really.
All the strings was actually so funny. We did that at Abbey Road, and so we all went down to Abbey Road, and everybody walked across the zebra crossing and fucking did all the pictures and all that. And we're in there, and it was Lou from from Electric Light Orchestra who was doing the arrangement. And so we're all there, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're downstairs in where the Beatles did the White Album. It's, you know, it's all Beatles. It's like the faders are like these big fucking circular things that you can, you know, that look like aircraft things, you know. And we got 26-piece strings out there. It's a London Symphony Orchestra string section. So 26-piece strings sitting out there. All these, you know, all these guys with, you know, with the, you know, dressed up, and it gets to about 10:15. And we're all standing around, we're all looking at our watch, and Louis Clark is not there. And this is a big problem because you only got 3 hours. And so anyway, Louis walks in at about 10:20 in the morning with 2 pints of beer. And he goes, "Where's the copyist?" So we go, "Over there." He goes, "Right, come with me." So he gives the copyist a pint. He takes a pint. And he sits down at this corner table, and he starts just writing the stuff out, writing out the music, straight out of his head. It's like Mozart. It's like Amadeus. He just starts writing it out, and he finishes a page, and he throws it to the copy guy, and he keeps writing, and the copy guy grabs it, and he starts copying them out, all by hand. We didn't have, you know, because we didn't have Xerox or anything. So, God damn, if within about 10, 12 minutes. He had the whole thing set up. So, you know, 13 copies and the master copy that Louis had himself. So he said, "Okay, right, you ready, guys?" Okay, so he goes out there. He stands on the podium. He taps his baton. He goes, "Okay, run through." He says, "Okay, run it." And he's drinking his beer. And he goes, "Okay, run it." So they're like, and this thing starts happening. And I'm just standing there. I'm not doing any of the engineering. I leave it to those guys. I'm like, I can't work that fast. I'm not, you know. I mean, and I've done orchestras before, but it's, you know, it takes me a lot longer to get the shit together. These guys, they do it every day. So they just like, oh, boom, 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 boom. They got 87s up. They got, you know, whatever. They got 47s here. They got 87s here. They got everything mic'd correctly. They got the guys sitting correctly, you know. And out comes this stereo mix of these strings. And once again, we do the whole, okay, run through. Okay, one more run through, and we record it, and then of course, and then we go to the other 2 tracks and we record it again, so we get another double track. And it was really a marvelous thing. And Louis, I mean, the fact that he was 20 minutes late and just pulled this out, and at 1 o'clock we walked out of there, we had the whole thing, and it was like, we were like, what the fuck? It happened so quickly that we were all looking at each other like, whoa. And we didn't even know how good it sounded at that point. We were just like, oh, well, we got it. So, you know, and then we go back to Ridge Farm and do a little bouncing and consolidate stuff. And we were like, oh, and the thing about that, one of the things that makes it work better is that it's done very quickly. So you take the first,
I agree.
You say, okay, I see what's going on. It needs to sound like this, boom. And you do it like that. And you don't second guess it. At the spur of the moment, and you do what you think is right. And it's stuck down. And I always thought if you listen to Led Zeppelin 2 and stuff like that, where Jimmy, he fucks up the guitar solo a bit, but he leaves it. You know, everybody left it. In those days, everybody just left it. It was like, yeah, you know what, near enough, move on.
Yeah, exactly.
It has this sort of verity that you don't get so much anymore because everybody wants to make everything perfect. But it had that kind of just live verity, you know, truthfulness to it.
No, as soon as we would finish recording at Ridge Farm, the album wasn't mixed, and we were waiting to mix it, and I didn't even get to hear a mix. We had board mixes, you know, from the board in the studio.
Sure.
That sounded pretty good, of rough mixes from, you know, I had those, but as final mixes go, I think that they went on the road and started doing shows and that. And Max Norman was mixing the album at Ridge Farm and sending them copies on tape for them to listen to and review and ask for changes.
And if you listen to Diary, and I can tell you this because I was in the bus when Ozzy got the mix version of the record, and I saw his expression and I heard how he felt about it. He thought it was crap, the mix. Because if you actually look back at that record, it was the first album of the '80s to be mixed with so much ambience.
Okay.
You know, it sounds like an '80s record, and nobody had heard that before. You know, all the ambience, all the reverb, everything that was going on, completely different from the sound of the Blizzard of Oz. And Ozzy had no idea that this was going to be the sound of the future.
And the second one, they weren't there at all.
Oh, wow.
So I was mixing on my own. And actually, even on the second one, I think there's a couple of tracks on there that I couldn't get any better from the rough mix. And I just told Ozzy, I said, look, you know, the rough mix is better than I can do now. It was more produced sound. It had more depth. We did stuff like Randy would do a clean guitar in mono, put a big, long mono, 6 or 7 second reverb behind it. And then he would do another one, so we would get this tunneling effect. So a lot of this stuff was it wasn't as cut and dried, obviously, as Blizzard.
You know, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's always, if you've got more time, you're gonna fuck around with it more, So I guess we messed around with the second one more, and we all got a little better at it, and Woody was a little better, and we wanted a progression. Everybody wanted it to move. We just didn't want to make another Blizzard of Oz. We wanted to make something that was more accomplished and more sophisticated, if you like. And that's really what we were looking for the second one, I think.